Once, in a serene hamlet named Zawadi, everyone lived joyfully. The settlement was encircled by towering, verdant trees, and its people adhered to unique customs. A particularly crucial tradition required that all young women remain untouched. That is, they must stay virgins until wedlock. This rule held great significance for Zawadi's inhabitants, who diligently ensured that every girl obeyed it. The parents of Zawadi took immense pride in upholding this practice. They firmly believed in their daughter's chastity and deeply valued this conviction. Frequently, they would boast to one another, making remarks such as, "My daughter is untouched, just like all the young women in our community." It was a mark of honor and dignity to them, demonstrating proper upbringing and reverence for their traditions. But one day, an unforeseen calamity struck the village. To dispel this series of disasters, it was disclosed that only a maiden of true purity could provide the remedy. Additionally, there was a pledge that the virtuous girl who participated in the ritual would wed the prince, while her family would be showered with wealth and gifts. Thrilled at the notion of their daughters joining royalty, every parent hurriedly presented their girls at the palace. They were convinced their daughters were untainted and eager to claim the reward while restoring harmony to Zawadi. As the assembly convened, Kofi advanced carrying an ample vessel. Addressing the crowd, he declared, "Within this pot lies a enchanted necklace consecrated by the deities. Only a truly pure maiden can retrieve it. This is the god's test to identify the one fit for the offering." The young women lined up anxiously while their parents observed with unwavering confidence. One after another, they reached into the container, yet each withdrew empty-handed. The atmosphere grew uneasy as the first girl attempted, then the next, and so forth, but none succeeded. Murmurs of concern rippled through the crowd. At last, it was the moment for the chief's daughters, celebrated for their elegance and charm. The eldest daughter stepped forward boldly, yet she too failed to find the amulet. The second-born attempted, but also came up short. At last, the youngest girl reached in, her fingers quivering, yet she retrieved nothing. The villagers were bewildered. Soft gasps filled the air. How is this possible? Not even the chieftain's daughters. The elders exchanged uneasy looks, troubled and uncertain. They had always assumed the village maidens were untouched, upholding the traditions they held dear. But now, it seemed something was gravely amiss. Word of the failed trial spread fast through Zawadi, stirring doubt and alarm. The girls cried out, "It's not our fault, it's Auntie Nia." As gossip surged, all eyes turned to Nia, the outsider from the city. Villagers muttered, pinning the blame on her for the disruption that had shattered their once harmonious home. "She arrived and turned everything upside down," an elderly woman grumbled. "Our daughters once respected customs, but now look at them." Another agreed. "Nia brought urban influences into our lives, making the girls forget their roots." And so, the story unfolds. Long ago, a young woman named Nia visited her aunt in Zawadi. She hailed from the bustling metropolis and was strikingly attractive. She always donned bright, revealing attire that drew every gaze. Nia strode through Zawadi with an air of royalty, and everyone noticed, especially the men. As she passed, the men murmured, "Wow, look at her. She's absolutely stunning." The local girls watched in awe. They envied her style and presence. "I wish I could dress like her," one whispered. "She radiates confidence and beauty," another added. The village maidens knew little about Nia, yet she intrigued them. Her daring wardrobe and self-assured stride were unlike anything they had ever seen. They began wondering what it would be like to draw admiration the way Nia did. "She's so captivating," one girl sighed. "I want to be just like her." And so, they observed her intently, eager to unravel more about her and perhaps mirror her ways someday. But little did they realize, Nia held a secret that would forever alter Zawadi's fate. Nia concealed something no one in Zawadi suspected, especially the men who marveled at her. Her charm earned her presence and wealth, but it wasn't just about her looks. Nia secretly met with these men, and in return for their offerings, she spent time with them in a manner the village would condemn. One day, Asabi, the chieftain's offspring, grew curious about why Nia always acquired new possessions and riches. Asabi resolved to shadow Nia discreetly and uncover the truth. She witnessed Nia speaking with a man in a secluded area before departing. With a pouch of coins, Asabi was astounded and thought, "So this is Nia's mystery. The men shower her with gifts for her company." She pondered whether she could receive gifts as well. Asabi had always been obedient, following Zawadi's codes. But now she was intrigued. She yearned to feel important like Nia did. The following day, Asabi spotted a young tradesman who had been glancing at her. She decided to imitate Nia. Asabi spoke to the merchant and arranged a clandestine meeting. The trader presented her with wealth and gifts, just as he had done with Nia. Asabi was thrilled and felt cherished. "This is so effortless," she thought. "I can obtain beautiful things too." She felt as though she had uncovered something incredible and was eager to inform her companions. Little did she realize this discovery would profoundly impact Zawadi. Asabi couldn't keep her revelation private. She disclosed Nia's secret to her peers and explained how simple it was to receive gifts from men. "All you must do is spend moments with them, and they reward you," Asabi elaborated. At first, her friends gasped, but then curiosity took hold. Soon, more village girls started replicating Nia's methods. They enhanced their looks with cosmetics and adorned themselves in ways that enticed the men's interest. The girls longed to feel valued and gain offerings, just like Nia and Asabi. They murmured, "If they can, why can't we?" Nia noted the shift among the village maidens and saw potential. She began coordinating encounters between the girls and the men, keeping a portion of their profits. "I'll manage everything. All you need to do is be kind to them," Nia assured. The girls believed her and obeyed her guidance. They adored the attention and offerings they obtained from the men. They felt valued and relished the newfound luxuries they could afford. With their newfound wealth, they began to neglect Zawadi's cherished customs of chastity and self-respect. The thrill of receiving luxuries made them overlook the values they had been raised with. As more young women joined in, it became a covert circle. They kept everything secret from their families and the village elders. The girls believed they were simply enjoying themselves, unaware of the consequences. This hidden truth was spreading, reshaping Zawadi in unimaginable ways. As the days passed, an increasing number of maidens began attending Nia's hushed gatherings with the men. What began as a few girls chasing wealth turned into a widespread habit. They no longer sought gifts alone. Now, they craved the thrill and admiration. The attention they received made them feel valued and exceptional, outweighing the appeal of material rewards. The elders and guardians remained oblivious. They continued their routines, assuming that traditions remained intact. The elders often preached about the virtue of purity and dignity, believing the girls were listening and obeying. They were unaware that the long-standing belief in keeping maidens untouched until marriage was being violated. The young women kept their double lives concealed. They behaved normally at home, attended village festivities, and carried out daily duties. Yet behind closed doors, they lived in a way that defied everything Zawadi had stood for. The forbidden act of meeting men privately had now become routine. They no longer felt remorse or disgrace about their deeds. Instead, they saw it as a newfound path, one that granted liberty and admiration. They had strayed far from the principles they had once held dear, and the age-old values were quietly collapsing, unnoticed by the elders. Then, one day, disaster struck the village of Zawadi. The vegetation began decaying, their leaves turning brittle and lifeless. The usually vibrant animals started falling, ill and perishing. Worst of all, the villagers themselves began to suffer. Many fell victim to unfamiliar ailments that no one had witnessed before. It was a grim, terrifying time for everyone. The villagers were paralyzed with fear. Baffled, they had no clue what had triggered the sudden tragedy. They had always honored customs and worshipped the gods, or so they believed. Desperate for clarity, they chose to consult the renowned oracle, Kofi, who was revered for his wisdom and spiritual insight. The villagers assembled at Kofi's dwelling, their expressions heavy with anxiety. The elders spoke first, detailing the crisis and inquiring how to lift the curse. Kofi listened intently, his eyes shut as though he were deep in reflection. After a lengthy pause, he finally declared, "The gods are enraged," Kofi uttered gravely. "They are discontent, for the sacred ways have been defiled. The chastity that once mattered has vanished. To restore their favor, a great offering must be presented. 2 untouched maidens must deliver the sacrifice to the holy shrine." The villagers gasped. The notion of a sacrifice was grave, but even more alarming was the call for pure maidens. The elders, who had firmly believed in the innocence of their young women, now looked uneasy. They had trusted their traditions were upheld, but suddenly doubt crept in. Kofi continued, "The offering must be made within 2 sunsets, otherwise the curse will intensify, bringing greater anguish to Zawadi." The villagers departed Kofi's home, their spirits burdened. They understood they had to act fast to identify 2 unspoiled girls for the ritual. The people of Zawadi had always taken pride in their daughter's virtue, but with the peculiar conduct of recent months, skepticism crept in. Their once unwavering confidence in their customs had wavered, and the shadow of the curse loomed over them all. That was how, at dawn, the town herald strode through the settlement, ringing his bell and proclaiming, "All unwed maidens report to the royal court. All unwed maidens report to the royal court." His voice reverberated through the village, and soon every household received the news. The people understood this was about the pivotal offering Kofi had foretold. Thus, the next morning, all the young women and their guardians gathered at the palace. When the sacred test was conducted by Kofi, the truth was exposed. Not a single girl in Zawadi remained chaste. Nia had transformed them all. Back in the present, Kofi's voice shattered. The tense silence, the gods witness all. Every word he spoke was filled with gravity, his rage evident. "We must persist in our search, for without the offering the curse will remain." The villagers grasped the severity of the matter. The chastity they had once assumed eternal was no more. The very girls meant to symbolize the village's honor and heritage had failed the trial. Now they faced the harsh truth. Finding the right maidens was more difficult than imagined. The burden of the curse felt heavier than ever, and Zawadi was overcome by fear and urgency. The accusation swiftly fell upon Nia, who had become the embodiment of all that had gone awry. The villagers were certain that her influence had led the young women astray, driving them to forsake their customs and bring divine fury upon Zawadi. The elders shook their heads, filled with disillusionment and fury. Nia's parents, who resided in the city, soon heard of their daughter's disgrace. They were stunned and humiliated. Her father, a strict man who valued discipline, was enraged. "We should have raised her differently," he lamented, his voice laden with remorse. "We were too soft, and now she has dishonored us." Nia's mother, who had frequently defended her daughter's behavior, felt overcome with sorrow. "I should have been firmer," she confessed. "I allowed her too much freedom as our only child. Now look at the disaster she has created." As the gossip continued, Nia felt the weight of their accusations. She recognized the effects of her choices and the chaos she had brought upon Zawadi. The once celebrated city girl was now viewed as the source of all the village's misfortunes. The villagers demanded that she answer for her actions. They believed she alone had guided their daughters into defiling their sacred customs. Zawadi fell into unrest, and the blame on Nia intensified with each passing moment. Her influence had steered the young women from their morals, and now the village suffered the aftermath. The elders declared that action must be taken to restore order and regain favor with the gods. The destiny of Zawadi hung in the balance, and all attention was on Nia, waiting to see how she would face her reckoning. The elders and townspeople assembled to determine what must be done, with no pure maidens left and the curse looming. The curse remained upon the village, so they turned to Nia, the one they held responsible for their suffering. A verdict was reached. Nia would offer the sacrifice alone as atonement for the disorder she had caused. She stood before the villagers, her heart filled with fear and remorse. Her eyes met their angry, disappointed gazes. Her parents, who had hurried from the city, stood by powerlessly. They could not shield her from the outcome of her decisions. The oracle, Kofi, handed her the yai, calabash brimming with sacred offerings. "You must carry this to the altar deep in the forest," he declared. "You will go alone. This is your burden to bear." With the weighty calabash balanced on her head, Nia set forth. She passed through the village, enduring judgmental stares and hushed murmurs. As she ventured into the thick forest, she truly felt abandoned. The trees loomed, and the trail grew treacherous. For 2 days, she traveled without rest, her feet throbbing and her soul burdened. As she walked, Nia reflected on everything. She remembered the thrill and attention she had once relished. She thought of the admiring village girls who longed to imitate her now. She understood how hollow and temporary that attention had been. It had led them all astray, severing them from the customs and values that had safeguarded their home. Tears streamed down Nia's face as she pressed forward. She deeply regretted the damage she had inflicted, not just on herself, but on the entire village. She now comprehended that actions bear consequences, and her choices had brought anguish to everyone. At last, exhausted and drained, Nia arrived at the sacred altar, nestled in the woods. She gently set the calabash upon the altar and knelt, weeping. With a heavy heart, she pleaded with the gods for mercy. She prayed for the curse to lift and for peace to be restored. In that instant, Nia felt the immensity of her wrongs and the grief they had sown. As she rose to depart, a profound calm settled within her. She accepted that she must face what lay ahead with bravery, even if it meant being separated from her family and the life she once cherished. Nia's journey was not merely physical. It was a path of awareness and remorse. She clung to the hope that, somehow, the village might heal from the wounds her actions had caused. After completing her journey, Nia returned to the village. As she walked through the forest and back into Zawadi, she noticed a change in the air. The villagers gathered, watching her with a mixture of relief and lingering anger. The plants that had withered began to show signs of life again, and the sick animals started to recover. The curse had been lifted, but the consequences for Nia were far from over. The elders stood before the village, and Kofi spoke. "The gods have accepted the sacrifice," he announced. "The curse is lifted, but Nia must face the consequences of her actions. She is not permitted to leave the village for 12 years. During this time, she will be responsible for carrying all sacrifices to the gods." The villagers murmured in agreement. They were relieved that the curse had ended, but still held resentment towards Nia. As part of her punishment, Nia was given a small hut near the shrine, isolated from the rest of the village. The villagers avoided her, and she was treated as an outcast. Nia spent her days fulfilling her duties, carrying sacrifices, and maintaining the shrine. She lived in solitude, reflecting on the choices she had made and the lives she had affected. The once bright and lively girl from the city was now a shadow of her former self, burdened by the weight of her past actions. The village, meanwhile, worked to restore their traditions. They reinforced the importance of purity and respect for their cultural values to protect their way of life. The elders decided that no one from the city would be allowed into Zawadi. They wanted to ensure that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. Nia's story became a cautionary tale for the children of Zawadi. Parents would tell them about the girl who came from the city and brought trouble to their village. They spoke of how important it was to respect traditions and make good choices. Nia's life served as a reminder of the consequences of straying from the path of respect and honor. For 12 long years, Nia remained in the village, isolated and alone. She lived with the regret of her actions and the knowledge that she had brought shame upon herself and her family. Her punishment was not just a physical one, but also a deep emotional and spiritual journey. She learned that true beauty and worth come from within, and that respecting one's culture and traditions is vital. As the years passed, the village slowly healed, but the memory of what had happened stayed with them. Nia's story was passed down through generations, a lesson in humility, respect, and the importance of making wise choices. It was a sad ending for Nia, but it was also a lesson learned for the village of Zawadi, reminding them of the strength and value of their cultural heritage. I hope you found the story enjoyable. If you did, be sure to hit the like button, share your thoughts on the lesson from this tale, and remember to subscribe to the channel for more captivating stories like this. Thank you.